was no coincidence that the first recording that would define us as a band started out with the sounds of Gainesville, Florida. Learning by Musical Montage was recorded right here at this house on the corner of Southwest 26th Street and University Avenue. What sounds like waves is really just traffic driving by, something we heard every day during our recording sessions. Finally had a recording we were proud of. With that, we found the direction forward.
We knew that we had something special, something that we had never done before, something that actually sounded like a real band.
That recording opened the door for us becoming legitimate. One of the other important things about 2004 was that Masa, who was our drummer at the time, finally moved to town. And I think personally I felt the pressure of that because we asked him to uproot his life and come join us for this rock band and make sure we played as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, I was ready to kind of move, and I was looking for a change. It was a 6-month trial.
Yeah?
That's what it was. It was a 6-month trial, and then it was a review after 6 months. 6 months passed, review after 6 months, and then it became 2 years or whatever it was.
For me, this was maybe the most exciting time in being in the band. Finally, we were doing what I had always wanted to do.
We started putting on shows of our own where we would pick all the bands. We would always pick that second spot, that magical second spot. So we felt we could hide the fact that we didn't know if we had a crowd or not.
We were on the road playing shows all over the state.
If you look at April and March, Gainesville, Tallahassee, Miami, Gainesville, Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, Gainesville, we played 13 shows in those 2 months.
The side effect of that was that even if people hadn't heard us, they had heard of us.
We understood from a very early point, the most important thing we could do was have people know who we were. Even if they hadn't heard our music, just to say, oh, I've heard of those guys.
Gainesville sometimes takes a little bit of time to warm up to bands. Around that time, it was actually kind of a tough period to break into that town.
Breaking from the obscurity of just being a band to being a band that people had at least heard your name was almost seemed like an impossible step.
If you could look back at our career and ask what was one of our lucky breaks, if any, it definitely was the first show of fall 2004. We were invited to play at the Market Street Pub. We were invited to open for a band.
I guess they had a song on the American Pie soundtrack, and they had a little bit of a following, and so it was probably the first show in Gainesville we'd ever played to a crowded room.
And all of our friends who had been coming to the shows in the spring were all here and knew all of our bits.
They made it seem like we were a lot more known than we were.
All these other young kids thought this must be something that we should be paying attention to. And from right then, everything changed.
You could start to see what Morningbell would become. You could see in the songwriting that they were definitely playing better shows. They were definitely a lot tighter.
But this is definitely when our local following started and solidified, which was great because that working title show got most of these students as freshmen. Therefore, we had a guaranteed fan base for the next 4 years. Because we had things like Underwater and Learning by Musical Montage and The Dope Illusion, which were very serious, very heavy songs, we could get away with the wink at the end, and then people felt like they were in on something with us.
And I'm trying to entertain the audience, and my philosophy is always try to give people a reason to come see a group play.
At this point, you have to remember that the MTV2 era of indie rock was in full bloom.
It was all about like, oh, look how silly and cutesy I am.
I think that college students in this town were ready for what we were doing, and coincidentally, we were ready to deliver it.
I think that we've always, as a band, wanted to be more interesting and more engaging. We don't want to just be like down and heavy, and so I think that those lighter songs were Travis's tool to kind of be the opposite of that.
It's a self-defense mechanism, really. You get on stage and it's terrifying, and so the only way you can really protect your innermost self is to pretend like it's all a big joke.
I
Gus doing something ridiculous. And then I got the mask, I made the soundtrack thing, and then you guys made the Gamera turtle costume, and then that's how it all worked out. But it was a one-time thing.
I mean, we really wanted to give people a good visual show. People are coming to see something, not just hear it.
There's always a new addition to the light show, or there was always some new theme for the night, and that always made it really, really fun. And not just that I want to go back and hear the songs again because I really like going to shows, but I want to see what they're going to do next.
The Robert Sledge Show is a big deal because this is the guy who was in Ben Folds 5, a huge band to us, but our drummer was not in town.
Since we didn't have Masa, we decided to record him playing lightning bolts on the drums, and then we played it through a miniature TV set on stage with us as we played the song live. That was, I think, one of the coolest things we did.
We had to come up with something super clever to still be worthy of being on the bill. Thus enters the $100 Light Show.
Don't look directly at us. We're like the sun.
Eric would just go to Lowe's and walk up and down the aisles of the lighting section and see what inspired him and what we could afford. So we'd have blue lights for underwater and then red lights for Mars, and we try to come up with something that would relate to the song.
I remember the Christmas light jackets came about because we lost power that year in 2 hurricanes, and I just spent all that time trying to figure out how to embroider motion Christmas lights into suit jackets. I don't remember how I came up with the idea, but it just was one of those things that as soon as it happened, it was us.
It just worked. Right from the beginning, it just worked.
I mean, the song called for it. There's a lot of emotion in it. The time signature was different. The piano parts and all the different musical parts all ended up working that way. So it kind of became almost like I don't want to say prog rock, but a showpiece.
I think the problem is that we would end with Tomorrow Never Knows, and then people will come up to us and say, I love that last song. What album is it on? I think at that time, Montage was pretty clearly our best song. And so I think we wanted to have that same effect of the big show ending, but have it be our song.
I remember when I heard Learning by Musical Montage, and I remember hearing that and being like, oh damn, these guys are onto something. They started to make that big leap forward into a real band.
The light show hit at the perfect time, at the perfect intersection between when our music started getting good and when we started getting a crowd. When those strobe lights would hit, or when the spotlights would kick on, you just know on stage, you just know that you're doing something that is at a level that no one else that night is going to be doing.
And let me tell you, trying to play arpeggios in 5/4 time with strobe lights on a keyboard they didn't teach me that in music school.
We had been working on it for so long. It was our first album. It felt like, okay, we have a point of view and actually have something interesting and worthwhile here.
The recording of that album was way over the top. If we had access to an instrument, we put it on the recordings. Literally, didgeridoo. We had tracks of us clinking glasses and having a party. That should not have been on a professional recording.
This is still in the era where there was no pitchfork really, there was no blog scene, you didn't release an album and then try to get somebody to pay attention to it. You just release it and hope that maybe somebody in your local town might listen to it. The main thing I remember is going to Market Street maybe a week after the release, and Pat was playing the album in between bands. And that felt really, really cool. It was actually a little bit scary for me, because I was like, holy shit, we've arrived.
So as 2005 begins, we get named the 3rd best album of 2004 by GainesvilleBands.com.
Which at that time was the main place where people got knowledge about the local scene, and that was a big honor for us, and it felt like a great accomplishment. A major concern was, how do we keep their attention? We felt like if we played a show and people liked it, we couldn't play the same show the next time.
Mars, coming. I can see you watching me.
I think this is the period where Eric really stepped forward in terms of coming up with new little gadgets. We had our merch board was like a middle school science project board. Every little aspect was designed specifically to grab your attention.
Morningbell was really different from the other bands in town, really because of the amount of care that they put into everything that they did. The songwriting, the stage show, they seemed to care about it far more than most other local bands. It always felt like they were giving the audience a fully formed product.
So we were always trying to come up with new things, just to kind of keep people on edge, to keep people wondering, what's going to happen next.
What can I do? What can we do to make the people want to come out and see us?
We did whatever we could to have every detail to be noticeable, to be different, to be part of the show. Anything that we could put lights on, we did. Anything that we could change the color of, we did.
I think also it really fit with the kind of music we played. Our albums are all over the place. They always were, and I think at first it struck some people as being like we didn't know what we wanted to do, but I think the better we got and the more we did it, it became clear that that was our style. Our style was having no style. And by having no style, we ended up creating a style. There is a Morningbell style. It just has nothing to do with genre.
My brain keeps being sucked into outer space. We were talking.
We might not have put out another album so soon had I not been really sick. I had Lyme disease in my brain and went through a really, really dark period around when we released Learning by Musical Montage. The first song I wrote after Montage was Something Keeps Sucking My Brain into Outer Space. I bought an edition of the Weekly World News, as I often did, because I wanted to read the cover story. Inside of this issue was an article entitled Something Keeps Sucking My Brain into Outer Space. It started kind of writing a song around it. It became something more serious to me, a way to explain what it felt like for me when I would have intense periods of sickness. To me, it felt like at that point kind of a life or death situation, like I needed something to put my energy into other than just being sick. It was therapy in a way, and I think that the second album, reflects that. It's a little bit uneven because of that. It's a little bit dark because of that. As we were finishing, probably in the middle of recording the second album, we were living with Masa at the time, and we realized that we couldn't keep going.
Don't live with your bandmates.
I loved Masa and loved playing with him. He's a fantastic drummer, and he taught me more than anyone really that I've ever played with, but we just knew we couldn't keep playing together. But we didn't know what to do. We didn't have a drummer. Evan had just started playing. Oh No and the Tiger Pit had just started, and he is a great rock and roll drummer and just had this energy that that we wanted, and we thought we would try to steal it.
I'd seen a handful of Morningbell shows at that point, and told him I'll do anything to be in the band. Which at the time I didn't know that you guys were already in the market for a drummer. I didn't know that.
There were really fun times that we had and fun shows we played.
11 million billion years ago, long before our forefathers' feet first set foot upon the fertile foothills of Philadelphia, came a musical creation, forged deep in the earth's mantle, from fire, magma, and fire. This composition threatened to render all music for the next 15 millennia obsolete. By decree of the elders, it was to remain hidden, unseen to human ears, until tonight, when Morningbell would be chosen to release it according to the prophecy.
That was a really fun show, and I was definitely nervous about that.
Ladies and gentlemen,
We were at one of the hottest new clubs in town. The Atlantic had just opened up. We packed the room, just absolutely full of people. That was the first time for me that I felt like we were close to what I wanted to be as a band. We had some friends in a band called Candy Bars that had done a press campaign with a group called Team Claremont. We just did a radio campaign with them. We had no idea at that point. It was the business was still kind of in a weird middle period where, again, blog culture was not a thing. That was not how you got your music out there. But college radio and like actually getting radio play was dying as a way of getting noticed. So we packaged 450 CDs and sent them out to radio stations all across the country and in Canada. Yeah, we didn't realize that we thought Team Claremont was going to do it for us, maybe naively. And it was an unbelievable amount of work. A lot of things that we did were just an unbelievable amount of work for, I can't really say what the outcome or what the benefit was.
Here comes this Morningbell CD, and it's got a bookmark attached to it. And I'm like, they're promoting literacy. I like this. So I'm going to give this thing a spin. Next thing you know, this thing is like climbing the charts at the radio station. Eventually, they got up the #1 spot. Anytime they came through town, I was like, get in the studio, we're going to do this thing, and loved every second of it, and I was happy to have them every time.
After Forgetting to Wake Up, after doing the radio campaign, we knew we were still not what we wanted to be as a band. We weren't where we wanted to be, but we felt like we were getting closer.
We really had a solid thing here in Gaines, but we also started getting attention from out of town. We started getting invited more to Tampa. We got some regional recognition in the Florida Music Festival out of Orlando. We got invited to play Tropical Heatwave in Tampa. And it just started to be one of those things that we were known as a good band in the region.
We were told from the beginning that the way you made it as a band was to get popular in your hometown and then to kind of try to spread that out, get popular in your region, and then somebody high up the chain would notice you and give you a shot. It really felt like, holy shit, we are doing it.
We finally start to look like professionals on stage. If you look back at the pictures and the videos, it's when Travis starts looking like a man on stage, a man who's commanding the audience. It's also when our light show was so locked in, our songs were so tight, our bits were so worked out. Whenever we were going to be in a new town doing some of these things, you knew they were going to work. The confidence was there, the experience was there.
There was definitely a sense of urgency or a sense of professionalism in the band.
At this point, I think we thought we had the tools in place to have our next effort be really unique and memorable and special.
And so we decided with this next one, we're gonna go all out.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, wow.